So the other morning, I was shown this interesting analogy. Imagine that you are driving in your car down the street, let's say a highway, and you may be alone in the car, or you may have passengers in your car, and there is someone else in their own car driving in another lane. And suddenly you notice that this person is swerving into your lane. So at first you may feel a little confused. Don't they see me? Second, you want to maybe alert them. The horn, the wave, rolling down the window, asking them to stay in their lane, because otherwise they can cause a crash that may harm people in your car and in their car. So then you realize that they keep proceeding, that they now seen you, heard you, and they keep proceeding anyway. So in life, as it is on the road, we may want to give people benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't pay attention, maybe they were unaware, maybe they didn't notice, right? Then it was a mistake. When they did see you, they did notice you, they heard you, and they proceeded anyway. It becomes a choice. So how does this apply in life? Imagine that your car is your life, your journey, your boundaries. Their car is their life, their journey, their boundaries. And at first, just like in this scenario, we may want to, when someone crosses our boundary, we may want to give them benefit of the doubt that they were unaware of that. Then we alert them and we ask them not to, because the crash can happen and people can get hurt. Yeah. If they proceed anyway, it becomes a choice. So with that, I like to flip it to, how does it look in life? First, awareness, of course, right? Being aware of our own path, including our actions, our words, our thoughts, our intentions, our energy. How does that affect ourselves and others around us? Second, being aware of life, boundaries, and path of another. We want to respect our own path and want to respect the path of another. So the point of awareness and reflection, right? Also reflection, reflecting on, I saw, I heard, and I proceeded anyway. Why is that? What in me caused me to make that choice? What triggered me potentially about that person, their car, the way they drive, the passengers in their car, or anything like that, right? So with that comes reflection, and a good, in my opinion, a good and healthy, appropriate choice would be, instead of charging forward, actually lean back and reflect. What is it in me that's triggering me about the person, the situation, whatever? And is it possible that what's triggering me is the part of my own unhealed story, and that person's story reminds me in some way, shape, or form of mine, or whatever it can be, right? Whatever example it can be. And third, it's really, well, and to add to that is, I find triggers so fascinating. They never are comfortable. They are never pleasant, and yet they can be beautiful gifts on our path, because triggers are like guideposts. They are our little helpers that point us in the right direction, point us, shine the light on what it is that needs to be healed, what it is that needs to be addressed, that potentially wasn't at all or wasn't fully addressed, right? So triggers are beautiful opportunities for us to address that wasn't addressed before. And third is responsibility, just like with the crash. If crash happened, if people got hurt, the right, appropriate, and healthy thing to do is get out of the car and possibly take responsibility for the crash we've caused. But sometimes people don't. There are sometimes maybe a scenario when someone gets out of the car and blames you for the crash they themselves caused in your own lane, aka in your life. Yeah, so the point of self-responsibility and taking responsibility for the choices we've made, for the people we've hurt along the way, is a good way. And that being said, to sum it up, I believe, as I was reflecting on this, and I found it such an interesting analogy, as I was reflecting on that, I find that any and all experiences that happen in our lives are happening for us. My personal belief, not to us, but for us, meaning to possibly trigger us, right? Trigger something within ourselves. What is it that this brought out of me, right? Which ways have I been triggered? And which ways have I responded or didn't respond, but I wish I had responded, and why? Is it something that needs to be changed in me? Is it something that needs to be shifted in me? Is it something that I can learn from that experience, right? So there can be many lessons in whatever situation we choose to, however we choose to look at that. And to add about the triggers, it's the analogy that I often use is about the salt, right? If you put salt on my skin, and I will just brush it off and it's not going to bother me. However, if I have the wound and you put salt on that wound, it's really going to bother me. It's really going to hurt. And I will not be happy about that. So was the salt the problem or the wound? So when we have a wound, when someone does something and it triggers something out of us, is the person the problem, or did they just guided us, pointed us into the direction for us to see that, hey, I have a wound there that still needs tending to and healing. You see what I mean? So, and to sum it up, after we heal from the injury, aka that crash that was caused, it's point of awareness, reflection, responsibility, and forgiveness, always.